The final types of content that we'll be adding to our site are blogs and podcasts. Basically, a blog is like a journal that you can write or a diary entry type of thing that people can subscribe to. So whenever you add a new entry, they'll automatically be updated with the latest entry of your blog. A podcast is sort of like a blog in that sense, where you record an audio file. Some podcasts can also have video, and other people can subscribe to your podcast. So every time you create a new episode or a new edition of your podcast, anyone who's subscribed to it automatically gets that episode or that edition of their podcast. We'll start with blogs. To add a blog to your iWebsite, click on Add Page. In the template chooser, we will choose the template for blog and then click Choose. Again, staying in the same darkroom theme that we've used all along. In the sidebar, you get a page for blog right here, and then you also get two subpages. You get one called Entries and one called Archive. Starting with the blog page here, you can customize this to whatever you want. This top part is for the main blog page. We'll call it My Blog. Here you can add a picture, add some information about that. And then down here, this section is where each individual blog entry will appear on your main blog page. If you click on Entries here on the side, it brings you to your list of entries. And you can see we've got our first one right here. So perhaps, let's see, I'm going to add some content about a pep band performance. So we'll go over here into Photos. You know how to do this already because we've done this before. And let's see. I've got some pep band pictures in here. So I'll add a picture there. And we will say, oops, pep band in the parade. Now you can see that iWeb automatically adds the date in here. If you want to change the date to a different date, maybe this happened a few days ago or a week ago and you're just now getting around to blogging about it, you can go ahead and click on that and change the date. And iWeb automatically changes that for you. If you want to put some information about the photo caption, you can do that here, or you can delete that section. In here we've got placeholder text, and we can type some stuff. You might want to type more than that, but I won't waste your time doing it. Then, if you want to add another entry, you can click up here in the Add Entry button. And again, we've got the same type of form. Maybe we're going to add another picture. We've just got some more pictures from the parade, and we're going to add that too. So now when we go back to our main blog page, you can see down here we've got both of the entries that we added to the blog. Now it just gives you a little summary. I didn't type very much so you see the whole text here. But on the main blog page it just gives you a little summary of the entry, and then you can click on Read More to see the rest. Now here's an important aspect of a blog. When you publish this website, which we'll do in the next video, this button here for subscribing to the website is how your friends and relatives and students or whomever you're doing this audience for, you know, whatever audience you're doing this for, in this case maybe you're blogging for your students to read, they can click on this and they can subscribe to the blog. So every time you add a new entry, they'll get that information, and it'll show up in Safari if they're using that as a web browser, because Safari also has an RSS feed function to it. And that's how they can subscribe to your blog. It works a very similar way for podcasts. We would add a page, again in our darkroom theme, and we would click on the podcast template page. Click Choose, and you can see in our sidebar here we've got a very similar type of layout as we did with our blog. We've got a main podcast page, again here with the subscribe button, so that people can subscribe to your podcast. And then you've got the list of entries here. and then the archive, which is where older entries are stored for both blogs here and podcasts. Just like in the blog page, you can add podcast information here, changing the title, changing the date, changing descriptions about it. Now, you can't actually create the podcast episode in iWeb. You would have to do that in GarageBand, and GarageBand makes it really easy to create a podcast and import it directly into iWeb. Now, for someone to subscribe to your podcast, they would need a podcast pod-catching software, and fortunately iTunes does that, which is available obviously on the Mac or the PC. So anyone can download iTunes for free, and they can subscribe to your podcast. So every time you produce a new episode of your podcast, it shows up automatically in their iTunes library if they have iTunes set to automatically download the podcast. We won't get into the details of how to create podcasts in this tutorial, but that's how you would set up your iWeb page to host your podcast.